DTFF.
Again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Hey, welcome back to DTFF, everyone. Happy Tuesday. And it is a beautiful Tuesday, I must say. It was a balmy, 45 degrees here in lovely Madison, Wisconsin today.
Hot.
It felt like spring. It felt like spring today. And I know it's a false sense of spring, but I still loved it. I was able to walk outside with the jacket over the shoulder. Didn't even have to put the jacket on.
Oh, that's a good look.
Oh, it was, and it felt so fucking good. I'm just like, the sun was shining down. I got all that vitamin D. Like,
that was your nickname in high school, right? By the way, vitamin D.
That's right. That's right. How did you know?
Let's be honest. That was like half of the people's nickname in high school if their name started with a D.
True
Let's
story.
be real.
True story. How are you doing this evening, Jake?
I mean, I'm so excited for the last football game of the year, even though there's no longer a vested rooting interest in this game. I'm going to soak up every damn minute of it.
My rooting interest is that I don't want the Chiefs to win. That is my only rooting interest for this game.
I talked about this a lot. It's not because, and this is what everybody jumps to, is you're just a Patrick Mahomes hater. So let me be one. I'm tired of dynasties in football. That's really all it is. I just don't want another dynasty.
Unless it's the Packers, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's just too much. And I think that's okay to say out loud. No, I don't want a damn dynasty. Yes, I am jealous of Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And it's not that you hate Patrick Mahomes. You just don't want to see this long living dynasty with him and Reed and Kelsey. And, it's fine to not want that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I hate how good he is. That's all.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a jealousy factor. Like if he was, on whose ever squad, pick your own Homer squad, you'd be ecstatic. You'd love it. You love that you're going to the Super Bowl every year.
I mean, of course. But people let people hate the teams that they want to hate. That's all I want to say about this. So I'm on your side with that. Although, honestly, as Packers fans, can we really say that, we'd feel amazing about the 49ers winning since they're the team that always knocks us out of the playoff? Not really, but I'd feel better about it.
Exactly.
Slightly better about it.
Exactly. Well, folks, we've got a fun episode here. Might not be the longest episode. We'll see. But we're talking coaching carousel. We're getting on the carousel. We're going to ride the horsies around for a while, see where they land, and decide, what we think the fantasy impact is going to be for the players where these new coaches are coming in. So should be a good lively discussion this evening, but we have our normal housekeeping here. And first and foremost, Jake, what are you drinking?
I'm pretty excited about this one tonight. I'm drinking blackberry whiskey with soda with a little bit of this marmalade orange simple syrup that my wife made over the weekend. It is just dynamite. Can't recommend highly enough. What do you got?
It sounds very fancy. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It's the marmalade that makes it sound fancy, right?
It does. And it makes me not want to say what my drink is because it's not fancy.
Boxed wine?
No, it's even less fancy than that.
Oh,
this is just a homebrew Mexican lager. Nice, easy drinker.
Not fancy. You made your drink. That's not fancy.
Well, okay. I guess. Fine, if you're going to be like that.
Talk more highly of your drinks, man.
I'm a humble guy most of the time. I just, especially when it comes to my beer making.
That's true. Although if you're watching this and if you've been to the Fantasy Football Expo, which comes around every August, I would like to say that this year, can we just put you on the list? Can we just say you're going to be bringing homebrew this year out to Canton,
absolutely.
Ohio? Right.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Maybe I'll brew a special expo beer, and I'll come up with some fun name for it. Well, maybe we'll have to troubleshoot that. Or folks, listening, joining us here, shoot us a DM at any one of our handles and say, this is what I think the style of beer should be, and or what the name should be. Something expo related.
I like it.
And
I like
keg. I'll bring a keg with me, and we'll have lots of tap beer to drink.
Beautiful. But that's way out there. That's way down the road. We're talking about the here and now for now.
That's right.
I will tell you before you don't hit the button yet. Don't hit the button yet. We are out. We are tapped out of current existing drunk trades. All right. This is not a me problem. This is a y'all problem. So we need to throw up once again. Please, not just follow us at Drinking Fantasy, but also submit your drunk trades to us on Twitter at Drinking Fantasy. We want to talk about them. I do have a little one to throw out to you, though, in my own personal dynasty.
Little is better than none. And I get this time of year is typically a little bit quieter because you're having league rollovers with the sites typically and things like that. Like this is a time where, even the most hardcore of dynasty players take a little bit of a step back, get a little of a break, refresh the gears a little bit, oil them up, grease them, get ready, as once the Super Bowl's done here and things start moving again. So I get it, but come on, folks, make some trades. Or at least tell us of some drunk trades that you made this last season, and we can evaluate how they worked out for you.
I'll even go so far as to say drunk offers. Drunk offers are fine too, even if it didn't get accepted or you didn't accept the one coming in. Because I'll be honest with you, mine is a two-parter. One is the actual drunk trade that occurred. It was not super recent. It was a couple of months ago. But the follow-up is a counter offer that I've received based off that initial trade. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. So here's the trade as it went down. This is a Superflex Dynasty League. All right. In November, late November, I got Drake London and Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a little toss-in. I gave away Brian Robinson, a 2025 second, and somebody named Trey Tucker, who I didn't even know I had on my team. But the other person really wanted Trey Tucker. I guess he's on the Raiders for what it's worth. But I really wanted Drake London, and this is going to be a nice segue into our discussion later on, because I anticipated at the time Arthur Smith would be gone from the Falcons. Fast forward, Arthur Smith has gone from the Falcons. But let me stop there. The initial trade back then, before I get to the counteroffer that I received off of this, what do you think? Are you team London, team Brian Robinson plus a second?
I am team London. He's still young. We know that offense was terrible with Arthur Smith. You would think it can't get worse. I know there's always that possibility, but chances are pretty good that the offense will see improvement this year. So yeah, I like the Drake London side. I think you bought low when you could. I don't know if you're going to be able to pull off a move like that now, just knowing that Arthur Smith is gone. So trying to attack that angle towards the end of the regular season when he wasn't really doing much, I think was a good call.
Thank you for that. I was not doing well in this league. I had zero use for Brian Robinson. That much was apparent. I didn't care about giving up the second round pick. I would very easily give up a first round plus second round pick for Drake London now or at that time and felt amazing about it. But here's the counter offer. So this person really wants Drake London back now. Now that Arthur Smith is gone. So how the
turntables.
The turntables, indeed, they spewed this way. It's Drake London for Stephon Diggs and a second round pick, the same second round pick that I gave to them. So Stephon Diggs had a big time disappointing end to the season, is now 30 years old, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that 2025 second round pick back. I won't tell you what I did or even the comments that I made, but let me hear your thoughts on that one.
Oh, just off the top of my head, I think that should be a smash, except with the caveat, if you're a rebuilding team,
Mhm.
I don't know that you want to take a 30-year-old wide receiver that has, and I know he's a fairly good route runner, but he has been known for like his deep speed. So I don't, a guy that kind of relies on his speed turning, or, he is 30. I just don't know if I'd want to take that on a rebuilding squad. If this significantly like puts you in a position where it's like, oh, now I could really kind of make a run, or I feel like, I have that elite piece, that's fine. But
Mhm.
since you said you weren't really doing well and you're kind of looking, it sounds like you're kind of looking at a rebuild a bit. I would want to stick with Drake London, but unless you think you could flip Stephon Diggs for a first later in the offseason,
I
that
think the
would be
days
the
of
only
Stephon
thing. But
Diggs getting a first are over. I really
I
do.
don't
I
know. It's
think
just
the
like,
days of that happening are over.
but
And
the
I'll tell
value is on
you,
the Diggs. I think the value is on the Diggs side.
I wanted to click accept. I will tell you, last year it was very bad, but I decided about week 3, I'm doing a soft rebuild. So I ended up just thinking like I knew at that time I don't have the pieces for this run this year. But I
Hmm.
was not so far off that I said I need to make this a long-term commitment
Right.
type of
Right.
rebuild. So I feel confident enough in my team going forward. My trouble is, has Stephon Diggs maybe potentially started to hit a wall?
Right.
What is the value gap really going to be between the two of them this year? Not even talking about the future, but in 2024,
Hmm.
what's the value gap? Now that Drake London has a new coach, who we will talk about in a minute, that should hopefully utilize him a lot more and has talked about utilizing him a lot more. So I did not click accept. I'm open to maybe tweaking the trade for him going forward, but as of right now, I have not accepted it, and I don't think I can accept it. If it was maybe an extra second on the Stephon Diggs side, I'd do it. I'd do it. But as of right now, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe
there's my
if
drunk
it's
trade.
a different wide receiver that is maybe a little bit younger, maybe you get another year or two back.
Mhm.
That I mean, I can't imagine this person has 2 wide receivers in that tier on their squad. If they do, I mean, bully for them, but
Uh,
uh,
well, they made a big time run. So they do have Debo Samuel on their side, but I also
okay.
can't fathom a world where I get Debo Samuel plus for Drake London currently. Just
Mhm.
because I think anytime that there is a player who has had a lot of success and is still going, this man is still in the Super Bowl. I think that that's just going to be a deterrent regardless.
Mhm.
So that was the other player where I was like, maybe I could flip for Debo in a second, but I can't imagine wanting to give Debo in a second for Drake London at this point in time. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's
my
quite
conundrum.
I was going to say that same word. It's quite the conundrum.
What?
But I think you are in the driver's seat here, obviously, because the guy really
Mhm.
wants Drake London back. So,
True.
if you hold out and just say, "Hey, I don't want to do this at this time,"
Mhm.
as it gets closer to draft season, or sometime during the off season, you could still make that trade. So it doesn't hurt just to hold for now.
Yeah, I'm going to hold, damn it. Sometimes the best moves in Dynasty are the ones you don't make.
That's
You heard
right.
it here first. TM. Nobody has ever said that before. Positive. All right. What the hell do we want to talk about here tonight now that my dumb drunk trade is out of the way?
All right. Well, let's talk about all these coaching changes. So, I see you have it listed nice and alphabetically on the show sheet here by team. So, since we're already talking about Atlanta, let's just stick on there. So, Atlanta cleaned house, got rid of Arthur Smith. Thank God. We'll talk about him a little bit
We did
later
it.
because he does resurface. But yeah, Atlanta hired Raheem Morris. He was the D coordinator for the Rams this last season. Was the interim coach a number of years ago for Atlanta. So kind of coming back home, and then he brought over Zach Robinson as his OC. who was the Rams pass game coordinator for the last few years. So I know in some interviews, it's been said that he is very excited about Drake London and Bijan Robinson, but there's been no mention of Kyle Pitts, which makes me scared. Because you would think, someone that you drafted in the top 10 as part of your young core group would get the same mention in a sentence like that. You want to include all three of them. So do you take anything from that, Jake? And just what do you expect, I guess, for these few fantasy pieces this next year?
Well, first of all, ding dong, the witch is gone. Arthur Smith, yes. Yay for all of us, I think, in fantasy.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to read too much into the opening presser from a newly minted head coach and say, oh my God, he didn't talk about Kyle Pitts. Sell, hit the big red button. I'm not doing that with him. It is unfortunate because it would be lovely if he could throw a bone to all of us who've been waiting in the wings for so long, waiting on Kyle Pitts. But I'm definitely not reading into that aspect of it. I'm also going to try not to overreact to the offensive coach coming from the Los Angeles Rams. I think we've been down the road of, it's a McVay coaching tree spawn. Let's everybody sign up. Let's all get crazy and get wild for it. We've seen that level of coaching tree, which is already an offshoot of the Shanahan coaching tree. It's not a given. It's not a guarantee that there's equal amounts of success. So it's tempering expectations for me, I guess. Are your expectations sky high at this point compared to where they were, I should say?
Well, I think anything compared to what they were is sky high. I mean, because the floor was so low. I don't take anything into this Kyle Pitts not getting mentioned either. I said that very tongue in cheek, and I made a joke about it on Twitter as well. Like Kyle Pitts is outside my top 12 this next year, just based on that comment alone. But no, I'm not worried. I do expect better production out of all three of those pieces. It'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback as well. That's kind of the linchpin here is what, this new coaching structure, GM, who remains, what are they going to do for the quarterback? Are they going to go after someone in free agency? Are they going to try to draft someone, move up in the draft maybe? So it really depends on what happens there. I mean, we saw at times that these offensive pieces had fantasy relevance, but it's not like it was a high volume passing game either. So yeah, I think it's looking up overall, but like I said, I'm a little bit tempered as well. Just, I want to see what they do with the quarterback first.
Which is a great call out too, because they did Raheem Morris alluded to in his press conference also that that Desmond Ridder is not going to be the guy at quarterback. So there's going to be something different happening at quarterback. I would hope that it's either a splash free agent signing or a heavy investment in the draft itself. They get one of the top 4 quarterbacks at least in the draft or something of that nature, but we don't know. And
what if they got someone like
Kirk?
Sorry, what if they got like Kirk Cousins?
Right here.
I mean, that would be just so wheels up, baby. Yeah, wheels up. 100%.
I couldn't stop myself. I would be drafting with my boner at that point. I am almost.
Well, I was going to say, my pants are getting tight just thinking about
it. And isn't that crazy, though? All we really need is a above average quarterback,
right,
to really just be like fully invested in that offense as a whole, which says everything about what's been happening in the last couple of years. And I don't know if Desmond Ridder / Taylor Heineke / old Matt Ryan was the issue behind the passing volume, or if it was just Arthur Smith. It's probably just Arthur Smith, but either way, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. The one thing that gives me hope too is just, with the OC being the passing game coordinator the last few years for Los Angeles. I mean, we saw what this offense can be there, and, working with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams catching balls, so I think it's a good sign because they did have success with the passing game. So it gives me hope that he's going to be able to be at least a decent offensive coordinator in his first stint here.
We can believe. Let's talk about another offensive coordinator, if you don't mind. If we scoot, because I am very curious about your thoughts here. It's not a new offensive coordinator so much as a holdover offensive coordinator, Joe Brady with the Buffalo Bills. He was the interim guy once Ken Dorsey got fired about halfway through the season. And so now Joe Brady, they've retained him. I feel pretty good about that in general, except for the Stephon Diggs of it all. There is a large overlap there with Stephon Diggs falling off around the same time that Joe Brady took over. I don't know that it's connected necessarily because Stephon Diggs also had a big fall off last year, the year prior, towards the end of the season. So it could just be, I don't got more juice left in the tank. It could be that situation, or it could be Joe Brady. Do you think it's Joe Brady here?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, you're having a new offensive coordinator coming in, and granted, he probably didn't change things drastically, but maybe just how he's calling plays. It just wasn't going, they weren't.
Not forcing.
Sorry.
Dun, 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 dun. Name that tune. If you know
it. I know what that tune is.
Well, you should know. It's your ringtone.
I lost my whole train of thought now.
All right. So is it just funneling to Stephon Diggs? Or
I think they can probably work this offseason to kind of game plan better and maybe get more plays to look Stephon Diggs' way. Maybe it was just a function of, hey, new OC coming in, just calling plays, and it just didn't work out for Diggs for whatever reason.
Yeah, I get that. I'm fine with it. This is fine to me. I don't have a strong opinion.
Yes, I concur.
Okay. All right. Shall we move?
Let's move.
I want to move. Let's talk about Carolina.
Yeah. Dave.
Before we even talk about the coach himself. Yeah. Dave Canales. It's not about the coach for me. I was going to feel bad for whichever coach landed here because the ownership structure is ridiculously bad. Like when you have an owner that can't keep his fingers out of the cookie jar for more than like 10 seconds, I just feel like it's almost like a figurehead. I don't know. I got that vibe from the coaching staff last year, from all the articles that came out. Like Dave Tepper just wants to be heavily involved in every aspect of every day of always.
It's Dallas East, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it doesn't even feel worse. It kind of feels worse than what Jerry does. But I don't know. Maybe
I think Jerry has learned over the years to give him a little credit. Like I think he was much more involved early on and has learned like, hey, I can just sit up in the box and, let my team actually run itself.
Do the thing that I've paid everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, getting back to Carolina, it's an interesting hire. I mean, Carolina's got so many holes to fill. And I know they drafted their quarterback last year. So give him, a couple years here, hopefully with some consistency with offensive coordinator, head coach, and we'll see some improvement. But I mean, they need so much help everywhere on the offense, basically. Their defense is solid, but we're not talking about defense because we're not IDP on this podcast. It doesn't move the needle a lot for me, honestly. It's, I made a note here. He was the OC for Tampa Bay this last year, and we saw what he did with Baker in that offense. They were pretty good. Worked heavily with the offense in Seattle for 13 years, so it's got a lot of offensive experience under his belt. So maybe that'll be good for Bryce Young in this offense. I don't know how much of a hand he's going to have in the offense itself. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, it doesn't do much for me, to be honest.
Yeah, this was just going to be a placeholder for me of I'll just continue staying away from it until they actually add reasonable pieces to the offense anyhow.
Mhm.
You know what this offense could really use, by the way? I mean, I'm crazy, I'm sure, for thinking this, but what if they put DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey on this offense? What then? What do you think
Yeah.
we could expect then
Yeah,
out of them?
that would be an interesting what if.
Crazy that we never got to see that
I
happen.
know.
Let's move on. Do you want to talk about Dan Pitcher in Cincinnati? I don't really have anything to say about Dan Pitcher in Cincinnati, to be honest.
No, just that, he was in-house hire or promotion from
Yeah.
quarterbacks coach. You get that consistency with Joe Burrow in the offense, basically. I don't think you'll see much changes as far as like offensive philosophy or anything like that. I could be wrong there, but yeah, just an in-house, just keeping that line of succession and familiarity with the offense going. I
Level.
think it'll be
I like
business
that.
as usual.
Business as usual. Way different than what's happening in Chicago. Chicago brings on Shane Waldron for the offensive coordinator spot. I mean, he was with Seattle during the triumphant return of Geno Smith, which is what I think that we probably want to hang our hat on for whichever quarterback Chicago ends up going with next year.
Right.
Probably, maybe not Justin Fields, but if it is Justin Fields, then maybe we have hope for him.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would. I don't think the Bears will stick with Justin Fields. I think it would be best for everybody if he moves on. Because how many systems can you put a guy through in the same goddamn town before he just like melts? His brain just melts. Change the scenery, however, when you're expecting like, okay, it's definitely going to be different because I'm going to a different team. I think that's a nice reset. Sticking with the same team with like an 8th offensive coordinator seems rough to me. But, they bring in a rookie, say it is Caleb. They draft Caleb. You've got this Shane Waldron guy. Are we putting too much on him by just hanging our hat on the Geno Smith of it all? Or what do we think about that?
Well, I don't think it can get really a lot worse than what it was. Again, going back to the Arthur Smith argument, it's like the floor is pretty low there. We saw flashes with DJ Moore and Justin Fields this year. If Fields sticks around, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Geno did some great things last year, not this last season, but the previous year. But that kind of feels like just one of those outlier seasons instead of an actual like what you're going to see moving forward type deal. And we saw him come back to earth this year. So I don't know how much to chalk that up just to the OC in that aspect. Considering he was OC this last year as well. And we saw there was some regression there. So I don't know. Hard to say. And it's hard to get excited about anything with Chicago, to be honest.
I know.
It's just
I'm tired for them. I'm exhausted for them. Even as a Packer fan, like there's just a certain amount of pity that I feel now towards this team of just like, stop shooting yourself in the nuts. Please stop doing that to yourselves. I don't know if Cleveland is shooting themselves in the nuts with this one or not. They might be. So Ken Dorsey, who was fired from Buffalo halfway through the season, now ends up with Cleveland, who has a habit of making very bad decisions as well. I hate this. I truly hate this. Do you have a strong opinion one way or the other when it comes to Ken Dorsey?
I don't hate it. I guess I'm lukewarm. I mean, he's kind of just another recycled offensive coordinator that's been in the league for a while. But we saw what he did do with Buffalo. He was there 2 years. Buffalo's offense has been pretty darn good. Maybe he can unlock Deshaun Watson if he's actually still on the team. I mean, who knows what's going on with that? But I mean, Deshaun Watson, passer, also can run, big guy, similar to Josh Allen. So maybe he can work with him and unlock a little bit of the old Deshaun Watson, assuming he's still around. But yeah, I can't say I'm overly excited for this. again, we don't know what is going to be happening with this Cleveland offense. You got Nick Chubb coming back from injury.
Right.
Maybe at the start of, I would think he'd be ready for the start of the year since that happened awful early, but we haven't heard anything really either. You got Amari Cooper. I mean, they've got some offensive pieces there. So can they put it all together? I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, my fear is they brought him in because of look at what he did with Josh Allen. When in reality, I don't think it was really him that did it with Josh Allen. He was just there for Josh Allen. And I think that they're probably putting that on him. And I don't know. Maybe that does mean that they at least intend to keep Deshaun Watson or trying to push forward with him. At least we might know that for fantasy based on this hire. That's all I got, though. I'm unimpressed. I'm unimpressed.
Yeah. Same.
All right. Well, good. We can be unimpressed together. Let's talk about somebody who's more impressive, I think, at least.
Yes.
Antonio Pierce. Congratulations to Antonio Pierce for getting hired after filling in as interim head coach. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Who knew that Mr. Davis would make a smart decision here with this coach? Obviously, the players rallied around Pierce. He was well liked. We saw them respond. So I think this was a smart move by them. He seemed to get the most out of the players. So I do like that they kept him around. And then their offensive coordinator, though, hire. I don't know. Coming over from Chicago, we saw what a train wreck that was. Is that because of the head coach and just it was Chicago, or yeah, I don't know. Is this guy actually really good
on the board?
Right? Question mark. And how is he going to utilize Devontae Adams? I guess, or is he just going to be like, just throw to him, just make sure you target him at least 20 times per game, and we'll get the rest of the receivers involved at some point.
So one good thing that he did in Chicago with DJ Moore was just like throw to him a whole lot. At least that seemed to be the ideal there. But yeah, you couldn't rely on Davis to make two really smart hires back to back. So this was almost a guarantee that he was going to follow up the Antonio Pierce thing with something weird, at least like Luke Getsy. I'll try to remain impartial about Getsy. It just
I would have liked to seen someone that had a little bit more offensive coordinator experience. Just because it's a first-time head coach who comes from the defensive side of the ball. So I really do think you need someone that's strong on the offensive side to really balance that out. So I was really hoping they would pick someone else, but like I said,
I kind of thought Kellen Moore might end up there. That was what I was maybe saying, but
that would have been a nice move, actually, or it would have been a nice hire for the Raiders.
Yeah, I think a better move, but I'm not paid to make these decisions. I'm not even really paid to talk about these decisions, so I don't think that I should have too much weight. But I think the big elephant out of all of these head coaching hires so far is Jim Harbaugh. Signing with the chart. That's the big oh, holy shit, it actually
buried the lead.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't know that it was legitimately going to happen. I thought there'd be some hemming and hawing. Maybe he'd figure out a way to utilize his coaching interviews with the NFL to go back to Michigan and have them want to pull him back in type of thing. And says he's like, fucking no, I'm going over to the Chargers. And it was a fairly quick process. It was one of the earlier coaching hires that was announced. So I think my only question is how much stock do we put into his Michigan days versus how much stock do we put into his San Francisco days? Because from a Justin Herbert perspective, if we put a lot more into his San Francisco days, I don't like it for Justin Herbert. But do you feel one way or the other about Justin in all of this?
I think it'll be fine. Who's the quarterback at Michigan? Was it JJ Hardy? I want to say. I could be making up names.
Sure.
I know he's not like a super mobile quarterback. He's more of your classic pocket passer, which is what Herbert is. I mean, yeah, Herbert's got a little scoot to him. He can get out of the pocket and run, but he's more of your traditional pocket passer. So considering that's what Harbaugh has been working with for the last, couple seasons there in Michigan, at least, um, I think it bodes well. I think it's wheels up for all the offensive pieces, to be honest. We've seen Harbaugh, basically wherever he's gone, he has seen improvement right away. And players seem to like him right out of the gate. I think that kind of wears after a few seasons.
The khaki effect wears off
Yeah,
pretty fast.
but I think I I know I said this last year with the Kellen Moore hire.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be that bold and say he's going to return to top 5 like I did this last year, but I do think we're going to see some improvements this year with the offensive pieces as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope so. I mean, it's just so weird because he got one season with Alex Smith in the NFL, and that one was all Colin Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, obviously, coaches can tailor their strategies to different types of players. So I don't want to say that he can't. Obviously, he's been very successful. But somebody did point out, I think it was Ian Hardett said, like, basically all of his offenses have been super run heavy. That's the only thing that worries me is he going to keep trying to do that in today's
Mm-hmm.
NFL? Because I don't think you can do that, sir. Not these days.
I don't think so. I think he's smart enough to know he's got to adjust with the times, and I don't think he would have necessarily, especially a team like Los Angeles that's set up as a more passing squad than a run heavy team. So I'm not overly concerned with that. It'll be interesting to see who they announce as their offensive coordinator, though. I don't think there's been an announcement on that, so that can really help shape what we think is going to happen with these fantasy pieces moving forward as well.
It's true. And also, let's see who they draft for running back or
Hmm.
pick up out of free agency for running back. I suspect Austin Eckler is not going to be the lead back there next year. Got to get a hot take out in this episode.
Could he
Truly, I
just
don't know.
be gone in general?
Just like not picked up by any teams.
Well, no, I just meant from the Chargers. Like, just like, no, we're not going to
Oh,
resign
yeah.
you. Like,
I think there's a
we're,
world.
we as the Chargers are done with you, sir. I think is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, if they invest significant draft capital, I would say, yep, for sure. And
Hmm.
some team would like Austin Eckler quite a
Oh,
bit still,
absolutely.
I'm sure.
Hmm.
Hell, the Packers, I would take him if he's going to
Hmm.
be cast off from the Chargers. But I don't know that will happen either. Do we talk about Mike LaFleur beyond the fact that, yes, he is Matt LaFleur's brother? He's been with the Jets for a couple of years. He's now the offensive coordinator with the Rams. I really don't know what more there is to say about him, truly.
Yeah, it's hard to judge too harshly because what could have been this season with Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets, I think you would have been talking about a completely different season. So, he had to work with all the worst of the
Zach Wilson.
quarterbacks, like,
Zach Wilson and not even Joe Flacco. They couldn't even
yeah.
let him work with Joe Flacco this year. That's the biggest disappointment.
So, I can't say it's necessarily a bad move. I think Mike getting away from the Jets is probably a good move.
Mhm.
Um, and he's got the LaFleur name, which we know what that's all about here in Green Bay. So uh, I don't think it's a step down by any means, but it'll be interesting to see what he actually does with real NFL talent on his team.
Real talent. Do they bring back Stafford next
And
year? I
and,
think
and
that they
that
have
is
to.
a slap to Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Those two are studs.
We
It
know
was
what you're
just
talking about, the quarterback talent. We
yes,
understand.
yes. All
We're
right.
smart enough to pick up
I
on
just
that.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
You don't want this clipped out and then spread amongst Brees Hall and having him come down on you with
Exactly.
the hammer of Thor. Let's go to New England. Gerard Mayo. I don't. This is another internal hire, which for most teams I think is an okay to very good thing to be doing. But when your team has been stuck in a rut for like the last several years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you promote the guy who has probably the exact same philosophy or very similar philosophies as the guy you just booted, who's like the most decorated head coach of all time, I don't get it. I really thought this is a time to move to new blood. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
Gerard Mayo getting promoted to this level is good, bad, in between?
I mean, I like that he's been given a chance. I
Yeah.
think this situation is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. I am happy for him that he's getting a chance. I liked rooting for him when he was actually playing.
Mhm.
And very defensive minded. So, um, you got Alex Van Pelt as their offensive coordinator. That's not the sexiest move either. So,
Nope.
there's so many holes on this squad. More on the offense than the defense, but I don't know. It kind of feels like just we're gonna hire someone for a couple years, maybe shed some cap, kind of go into a rebuild mode, and then in a couple years when the cap is cleared and we've accrued some draft capital, then we can hire that head coach that's going to come in and make the change
Fix it.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for fantasy for 2024, I don't know that I'll have a single Patriots player
Yeah.
on my roster.
Maybe
I don't
Zeke if
know.
he re-signs with them and because he'll go
God,
super late.
the late round flyer on somebody
Yeah.
like him. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. It's not inspiring for fantasy.
No,
It's
I
very
can't
much not.
imagine any of the Patriots offensive pieces are going to go before the fourth or fifth round.
God,
I'm
I
sure
don't
Ramondre will
know.
probably go because he's got that name value. I'm thinking more in like your traditional just home league. Like he's got
Yeah.
that name recognition, so maybe he'll go by then. Um, but I
I was
can't
out on
say
him
I'm gonna
last
be.
year. I'll be out on him
Yeah,
this year too,
yeah.
I'm
I'm not gonna
sure.
be touching. I don't think any of these Patriot pieces early in my draft at all.
No, God. I kind of hope that they draft a quarterback.
Hmm.
Can you imagine if it's another year of Mac Jones / Bailey Zappi alternating?
Uh,
I don't want to live in that world. I don't. Let's talk about something slightly more positive. Kellen Moore going over to Philly. I thought this was pretty interesting, at least.
hmm
You had talked about earlier of maybe putting too much on his shoulders for fantasy when he went to the Chargers and just saying, like, look at what he did with the Cowboys and how much more he could have done if old man Mike wasn't hovering over his shoulder. But then he
hmm
leaves. Mike McCarthy or company kind of constructs a pretty solid offense, certainly for
Yeah.
the passing game for the Cowboys. And Kellen Moore really just kind of sputters with the Chargers. So is this just he needed the reset like some players do? Or should we temper expectations here too?
Um, hard to say. And this is probably the toughest of all of them to gauge,
Yeah.
because Philly has all the pieces in place. Like they have a super talented squad on the offense. I don't think they're losing any of their major offensive pieces via free agency this year. So like they're set up to basically bring back their entire offense, which is incredible. So
Yeah.
they're already like hashtag good. Can they get better? I don't know. Like I said, this last year with Kellen Moore, as you said, it really I had way higher expectations for what he was going to do for that offense, given
Yeah.
the offensive pieces that were there. It's not like the Chargers lack playmakers on offense. Even
They
losing Mike
started to
Williams.
throughout the season. I was going to say they did start to because Mike Williams goes down, and then halfway through, Keenan Allen goes down. But prior to that, really, if it was only Mike Williams that went down, do you think we would have judged this season a lot different for Kellen Moore
I
in
don't
terms of
know.
like favorability? Because if it was only him, actually, I think it would have been less favorable. Because you're like, you
Yeah,
still had Keenan Allen, you son of a bitch. Like, all you
exactly.
got to do is route it through him. So
Exactly.
I might be sour grapes because of that.
Yeah,
To
I
be
think
honest.
my expectations are slightly lower. Um, but I definitely not on the upside though. If anything,
Hey,
we'll see more
Kellen.
of the same.
Hey, Kellen, buddy, can you take away like half of those tush pushes so that they go to offensive
Oh,
players that we want to roster in
yeah.
fantasy? Thanks, buddy. That would be swell. I don't want to talk about this one. I'm looking for any excuse to not talk about this one, but we really have to.
We have to. Boo!
He's not
Arthur
dead.
Smith went over to Pittsburgh. I'm sorry. I just want to publicly apologize to all Steelers fans
Yes.
because you went from Matt Canada and you guys, we were all excited when he got fired in the season. And then you hire Arthur Smith and we saw what he was doing with the weapons he had in Atlanta. It just blows my mind. And I don't know if this was a Tomlin hire or I don't even know who the GM is there, but I'm just like, this is this is the most baffling hire.
What a bummer. What a significant bummer. You know what this is? This is like at the end of a lot of scary movies, or hell, I'll even say at the end of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know where you think the villain's dead? You think for sure the villain's dead and they're buried,
The
and then
claw
it's just
comes
the
up.
hand coming out.
Yep.
It's just that coming out from underneath, and then now we're screwed. Now we're screwed
Yep.
again. And that's the worst jump scare that I've ever had in the NFL.
Yeah, and basically this is a down arrow for all offensive pieces on the Steelers, unless we see something different. But I mean,
because what the fuck do you do with even Najee Harris versus Jalen Warren? I don't think that we can rely on. Maybe Jalen Warren gets a bump with Arthur there because he's not the lead guy.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. We know that Arthur Smith hates fantasy, so he's gonna, throw it to the fourth wide receiver and the third tight
Wheels
end.
up on Darnell Washington, I guess. For
exactly.
Next year. Shit.
Yeah, but it's down arrow for all offensive pieces for me.
For sure.
And it makes me sad because I love Deontay Johnson so much.
I know. He might be out next year, honestly. There's a world where he doesn't even play for the Steelers next year. Who knows?
I would be okay with that.
That would be best for him and for you, I think. Seattle, they hired Mike McDonald. It's not Michael McDonald. I want to be very clear about that.
Oh, I was just going to start singing some Doobie Brothers for you.
No, how dare you bring Doobie Brothers into this? We know that Doobie Brothers only exist without Michael McDonald. It's not Doobie Brothers once Michael McDonald comes into the fold. It's something else entirely. It's gross. It's not the same. We don't count that.
False.
We don't count him doing his thing with the Doobies. All I want to say about Mike McDonald, that is not Michael McDonald, is that he doesn't capitalize the D in McDonald. And I can't. I don't even think I can talk about this guy for that fact.
I can't take him seriously.
It's terrifying. But honestly, for Seattle, I mean, he's a defensive guy and did great. He was great when he was with Baltimore. But Seattle, I still don't know how much Pete Carroll is going to be involved in this team. That's another weird question mark. He's hanging around, but in what capacity, we don't know.
Right. I mean, he'll be great, I think, for the team. Obviously, we'll have the focus on the defensive side of the ball, considering that's great things he did with Baltimore in their defense. And I do like their hire for the offensive coordinator there, Liam Cohen. He was the OC for the Rams for 4 years. Rams have had a I shouldn't say very, but I'll say very high-powered offense, very fantasy relevant. So you got a couple good wide receivers.
That's the Bucs guy.
Huh?
Yes. I didn't want to throw you off your path because I know how excited you would have been if he was there, but he actually is the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, not the Seattle.
My information was bad. What?
Hey, I wrote it correctly on our show sheet.
I was looking at the wrong
friend.
line. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Your line reading's bad, man. How about them
Gosh
apples?
darn it. Don't I feel like a
But okay,
horse's
so now
ass?
remove Liam from the situation. We don't get Gallagher brother over there. So now it's just Michael McDonald. Now, are we still excited about the Seahawks, or are we tempered? Because we don't know who's going to be there for the OC. I don't
Right.
believe yet. So maybe that's a
Yeah.
big thing.
Yeah, I guess it's a wait and see who gets hired as the OC there. Um, but you still, I mean, young fantasy pieces all around,
Mhm.
with the exception of Tyler Lockett, who will be perpetually 30 years old and undervalued in fantasy. So,
True.
yeah, just a wait and see here for those offensive pieces. Now, moving on to Tampa Bay, because I can read
I know you can.
Liam Cohen moving over from the Rams. I think probably a good move. Rams, as I was saying, high powered offenses. You've got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Baker
Mm.
seems to have revived his career there. You got Rashad White. I mean, you got a lot of offensive pieces there. So I think he's going to know what to do with them. So I think that's probably a good pickup by Tampa Bay.
It's kind of don't fuck it up
Hmm.
almost with Tampa Bay. It's like they finally got a pretty good thing happening on the offensive side of the ball. Please don't fuck this up. So it feels like this is a hire where they're like, yeah, you're coming from the Rams. Again, I'm not trying to overstate the McVay coaching tree thing,
Right. No,
but it's like,
obviously.
here's a guy who can operate with a quality offense and just not fuck it up. So I love it. This might be my favorite OC hire so far that's happened, because now I'll be right back in on Baker and company as long as
Hmm.
they're sticking around, which they obviously should be, in my opinion. All right, let's go through these last couple here. So Tennessee, it's Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals, going back a ways. How much of it is him? How much of it is Joe Burrow? I mean, we'll find out, certainly, as we get the passing game coordinator over in Cincinnati, who's been upgraded. But Brian
Hmm.
Callahan to Tennessee, they needed anybody with an offensive mind on this team if I was going to invest in them again in fantasy, because it's become too frustrating to always have a defensive minded guy at head coach. That's
Hmm.
my takeaway.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other about this. It's kind of a remains to be seen type deal, but it
Yeah.
definitely doesn't hurt the offensive pieces, as you just said. I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Beautiful, beautiful. Then let's talk about Washington, because we're required to, I think.
Hmm.
Dan Quinn, hire. Uh, I don't know. No offense to Riverboat Ron Rivera, but he always struck me as more of like a culture change guy, of like, we need to reset the culture on this garbage team. And Ron Rivera is the guy to do that, which great. Much applause for that, because I think he at least started to have that impact. But in terms of
Hmm.
like X's and O's, I don't think that that was ever their real intent there. Dan Quinn seems like that part. It's like, we've made the transition. Hopefully, people respect us more now in the league,
Hmm.
and we can just try to put together an offense.
Well, and this
I
is the
don't
new
know.
ownership's first hire, really. They have the new owners there finally. So,
Mhm.
they have a guy that's been a head coach before, lots of experience in the league. Um, someone that can work with their defense. I know they traded away a couple of their big pieces, so I guess I just didn't want to pay him those big second contracts, is what I'm guessing. But yeah, you get a guy. I don't think it's a bad hire for a new owner. Someone, like I said, it's been there, it's done that. Um, hasn't been a head coach for what, 3 or 4 years now. So um, so yeah, I think it's fine. It's a solid hire. It's not a sexy hire by any means, but probably someone that can turn the ship or keep it turning at this point.
So, do we anoint the offensive coordinator hire then as sexy? Is Cliff
No.
Kingsbury sexy for this offense? Do we care about Terry McLaurin under Cliff Kingsbury in this offense? Maybe that's the only question that needs to be asked right now for fantasy.
I think it really depends on who their quarterback is. I mean, Sam Howell was
What if it's Sam
fine for
Howell?
he was fine for fantasy. I mean, he,
Threw the ball a shit ton.
yeah. So, I mean, can Cliff work with him and make him into a legitimate, like, real solid NFL quarterback? I don't know. I mean, we know the Cliff experiment didn't work out well in Arizona, but was that just because he was head coach and he's just maybe not head coach material, but more of an offensive coordinator? I guess that remains to be seen. This will be
I'm
the true
glad you
test
brought
for
that up.
Cliff.
Because there are a lot of guys where people give them so much shit because they can't be a head coach. But it's like a
Mhm.
head coach has a hell of a lot more on their plate than just calling the plays, designing the offense.
Exactly.
So I am cautiously optimistic for Terry
Mhm.
McLaurin. This might get me to draft him at his ADP for once, which I have never done. I don't even think in his rookie year. So that might finally be the needle that moves it for me. We'll see.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, we
That's where we're
shall see. All right. Well, that finishes our coaching carousel. Time to get off the ponies. I had a unicorn personally. I envisioned my horse with a
Oh,
unicorn horn.
magical horn. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one. That's a good one. Should have been
So before we get out of here, Jake, Super Bowl predictions. Since it is the Super Bowl, what is your prediction?
I'm in on this. All right. I've said this. I've been saying this for a few days. San Francisco, it's your time to shine. I'm tired of the Kansas City dynasty. You're out of here for this year. You'll be back next year, Chiefs. So be fine with it. But I'm taking San Francisco 24-20 over the Chiefs.
Yeah, I am going to choose San Francisco as well. I'm going to go 31-28. I think it'll be a little bit more high scoring than what you have. And I think it's going to be San Francisco because it's just with Jim Harbaugh coming back into the league, that the team he formerly coached wins the Super Bowl that same year that he returns. I think would just be just sweet irony
It's a
that the
great
NFL would
narrative.
love. Yeah.
Great pre-written narrative, obviously, that they've decided on. Can we both
So wait,
acknowledge this one thing? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. You
Oh,
first.
I want to say one thing. I want to say one thing about this. People kind of giving shit about, like, Taylor Swift, and that's going to be the storyline, and it's going to be Travis and Taylor kissing under the confetti. Maybe it is. But have you considered this? Taylor Swift has brought in this massive fan base now to the NFL.
Hmm.
I think it would be a disservice to that fan base to have them win the Super Bowl this year, because then your expectations as a fan are
Way high.
way too fucking high. You have to come down at least somewhere from the top in terms of realistic expectations. It's going to do you solid moving forward. Trust me, you don't want the win this year.
So here's my question for you.
Okay.
If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, does Travis Kelce retire? He goes out on top. He's got Taylor Swift he can then travel with her, and he can kind of do his thing. He's what, 34, so he's
He's got a
getting up
successful
there.
podcast,
Yeah,
right? That he could market with his brother.
he's getting up there in football years. I mean, I know tight ends can play, into their late 30s and still be very useful and fantasy relevant, but
Jimmy Graham, baby.
yeah. Antonio Gates played forever. Jason Witten. I mean,
Yeah.
we did see a little bit of a decline, and I don't know if that was just injury a little bit, or, I don't, or maybe he is finally starting to hit the wall a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit of regression. But do you think there is a possibility, or what percentage do you think? Let's put it that way. Give me a percent on if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl of Travis Kelce retiring.
If they win, I will put it at 55%. If they lose, I will put it at like 10%, because I think you would want to go out on top. And obviously, they have the chance every year.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 65% if they win.
Dang.
I think it'd be, the narrative would just be too great. He just rides
You're
out
right.
into the sunset. He's got Taylor. They started dating. It's this magical thing. The story couldn't write itself any better.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So let's all watch the Super Bowl and track. And we're not going to have to worry about it because the 49ers are going to win. regardless. So we don't even have to ponder it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I will be very interested to follow that. I do want to hit a question in the chat real quick before we exit. We don't have to exit talking about a retirement. That would be sad anyways. Matt Tappy in the chat. What are we thinking about Jordan Love in the Dynasty League? Got 4 more years of him. You're talking to the right guys, Matt. A couple of Packers homers here. Maybe you're talking to the wrong guys, actually, as Packers homers. Dustin, I don't know about you. I am very sad right now that I do not have a share of Jordan Love in Dynasty. That includes Superflex leagues. I've tried to remedy that situation in the recent past, and it hasn't worked. I'm very excited for him. Touchdown regression be damned. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very excited too. I love what we saw this year. I know we've talked about it previous podcasts here a little bit, but he's young. The wide receiver core is very young. You got a great offensive mind here in Matt LaFleur. I just don't know what there's not to love about this offense.
Oh my God, you said it. You said it.
I know.
Loud. Okay.
But yeah, I'm very much in on Jordan Love. I think I don't think he could ever push unless it was a super special season into that like top 5, top 3. I just don't know that that's in his wheelhouse of finishes. But is he going to be a low end QB1 for many years to come? Yeah. I think he could be like a Kirk Cousins where he's just hanging out there at like 10 to 12 every single year for the next 10 years. Like that's probably the most realistic outcome. Is he going to have maybe one of those top 5 finishes? Yeah, it could definitely happen. I mean, we saw what he did this year, and this was the first year in the offense. And like I said, with all these young pieces, so assuming they continue to take step forwards, could that happen? Absolutely. But yeah, I think he's going to be solid, and I would love to have him on any of my squads.
Ride that rocket shit up, Matt. I said rocket shit. I think that still plays instead of shit.
It does.
Yeah, it plays. It's fine.
It plays. All right. Well, everyone, enjoy this last NFL game of the season this Sunday, because this is it. No more football until August after this. I know it's going to be a long road here, but we'll have plenty to talk about as the offseason progresses, obviously. So enjoy the Super Bowl, everyone, and keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.